This section is going to talk about piecewise functions. But before we talk about piecewise functions, let's take a look at a linear function. Okay, so the problem says, and I'm sorry that it's crooked. A cloud-based data storage service charges $9 per month, so that's their monthly fee, plus $3 for each gigabyte used. For part A, you want to write the cost function using D equals to the gigabytes of data used, and C is going to be the cost. Okay, so there's a fixed fee, so your fixed cost is going to be $9 because that never changes. Whether you use 1 gigabyte or 100 gigabytes, that's still going to be your monthly fee. And then this is your variable cost because for every gigabyte you use, it's going to cost you $3. Okay, so the cost is going to be your $9 monthly fee plus $3 for each gigabyte used. So that's going to be, we're using D for data or gigabytes used. So your cost function is going to be C equals to $9 plus 3D, or if you rewrite this, it's going to be 3D plus 9. Okay, that is your cost function. $9 monthly fee, that's fixed, it's not variable, plus 3 times the amount of data used. Okay, so for part B, let's say that we want to calculate the cost if an individual uses 5 gigabytes in the storage service. Okay, so if they use 5 gigabytes, how is the monthly fee calculated? Well, your cost is going to be your $9 flat fee, that's not going to change, plus $3 for each gigabyte used, so that's going to be 3 times 5 gigabytes. So that's going to be 9 plus 15, which is going to be $24. Okay, so the cost of using 5 gigabytes on this service is $24. All right, what about 10 gigabytes? So our process doesn't change. We have your $9 monthly fee plus $3 for each gigabyte used, so it's 3 times 10. 30 plus 9, that's going to be $39. Okay, then we have 12. Okay, what about 12 gigabytes? Well, if you use 12 gigabytes, you still have your $9 monthly fee, and you have $3 for each gigabyte. That's 3 times 12 is 36. 36 plus 9 is $45. All right, so this is these are your points. Now, part C says sketch a graph of what this looks like. Now, because our numbers are fairly large, what I'm going to do is I'm going to here on this axis, I'm going to go by 2s. So the D-axis, that's how many gigabytes are used, is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I'm going to go by 2s. And then on this axis, the Y-axis, this represents a cost. I'm going to go by 3s. So this is like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, etc. And we're just sketching, so this is not that big of a deal. All right, so if you use 0 gigabytes, if the amount of data used is 0 gigabytes, you still have to pay the $9 maintenance fee. So at 0 gigabytes, your cost is $9, so it's $369. If you use 5 gigabytes, it's $24. So 2, 4, 5, and that's going to be 24. If you use 10 gigabytes, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that's going to be $39. That's going to be like up there somewhere. So your cost function is going to look something like this. Notice we don't go in the negative region because you can't use negative data. So you start at 0 because that's the least data you can use. Okay, now notice your cost function is linear, just one straight line, because your cost function doesn't change. It never changes. Even if you use 5 gigabytes of data, or 12, or 120, you're still going to use the same function. A piecewise function is different because depending on what your x or your d or whatever depending on what your input is, this function changes. Okay, so kind of think of it as like your taxes, for example. If you make $45,000, you fall in one bracket. So there's one formula to calculate your tax. If you make $450,000, then you pay a higher percentage. So the tax rate is calculated using a different formula because you're paying a higher percentage of your income. So that's kind of what a piecewise function is. Depending on how much money you make, different formulas are used. Okay? So that's the gist of a piecewise function. Now here's an example. I'm not going to write all this out because it's in your media notes, but I'm going to read it to you. So the problem says that another cloud-based data storage company charges a $5 monthly fee for the first 3 gigabytes used. Okay, so let's kind of I'm going to make a little table. Okay, so this is your cost, and this is the gigabytes used. So if you use 1 gigabyte, 2 gigabytes, or 3 gigabytes, the monthly cost is going to stay fixed at $5. Okay, so it says between, for the first 3 gigabytes, so 1, 2, or 3, or I guess I should use 0, because you can use like half of a gigabyte. So we got 0, 1, 2, 3, that's going to be $5. Okay. Now, between 3 gigabytes and 8 gigabytes, okay, so between 3 and 8 gigabytes, the company uses a different formula. The formula the company uses is C of D equals to D plus 5. Okay, which means whatever number of gigabytes you use, you add $5 to it. Okay, so when you get to 4 gigabytes, you're no longer paying $5, you're paying D plus 5. So that's going to be 4 plus 5, which is $9. If you're using 5 gigabytes, you're paying 5 plus 5, which is $10, etc., etc. And that's going to go all the way till 8 gigabytes. Until 8 gigabytes, you're paying 8 plus 5, which is $13. So notice that you're using a different function to calculate the cost from 0 to 3 gigabytes and then 4 to 8 gigabytes. Okay, so between 3 and 8 gigabytes, you're using the function D plus 5 to calculate the cost. All right, well, what about if you use more? If an individual uses 8 gigabytes or more of data, then the company uses the formula C of D equals to 2D. Okay, so this one says between 3 and 8 gigabytes. So 8 gigabytes, where does that fall? That's not going to fall in this function, okay, because you're in between 3 and 8. So if you have 8 gigabytes, then you're no longer using that function, you're using a different function. So I'm going to use 7.9 to calculate this one. So 7.9 plus 5, that's going to be $12.90. Because here's what happens. As soon as you get to 8 gigabytes, the problem says, and if an individual uses 8 gigabytes or more or data, then the company uses the formula C of D. So more than 8 gigabytes, 8 or more, then the cost function is going to be 2 times 8, or 2 times D. So if you use 8 gigabytes, then your cost is $16. If you use 9 gigabytes, your cost is $18, etc., etc. So you use a different function for if you use 8 or more gigabytes. Okay? So let's go over that one more time, because conceptually it's kind of hard to understand sometimes. If you use between 0 and 3 gigabytes, your cost is fixed. It's only $5. Okay? If you use anywhere between 3 and 8 gigabytes, so not 8, because 8 gives you a different function, but if you use between 3 and 8 gigabytes, your cost function is D plus 5. Whatever data you use, plus 5. If you take 8 gigabytes or more, then your cost function is 2D. So for 8, it's going to be 16. For 9, it's going to be 18, etc., etc. This is an example of a piecewise function. Because a piecewise function, you use a different formula to calculate the cost at different values. Now let's go through our problem. Part A says, how much would an individual pay if he or she used 2 gigabytes of data per month? Well, if you used 2 gigabytes of data, then you would pay $5. Okay, so for part A, for 2 gigabytes, the cost is $5, because between 0 and 3, you're paying 5. How much would an individual pay if he or she used 5 gigabytes of data per month? Okay, so if you use 5 gigabytes of data, then you're between this range, 3 and 8. So if you use between 3 and 8, then the cost is going to be D plus 5. So if you use 5 gigabytes, then your cost is going to be 5 plus 5, or $10. Okay? How much would an individual pay if he or she used 10 gigabytes of data per month? So if you use 10 gigabytes and you're in this range, so if you use 8 or more gigabytes, then you take the number of gigabytes you have and you multiply that by 2. So if an individual used 10 gigabytes, then their cost would be $20. Okay, now I'm going to go back to part A. The other part of it says, what if you use 3 gigabytes? If you use 3 gigabytes, it's still going to be $5. Now between 3 and 8, it's going to be this formula, D plus 5. So if you use 7 gigabytes, that's going to be 7 plus 5, or $10, or $12. Okay? Now if you use 12 gigabytes, then 12 times 2, that's going to be $24, because in this region, you're multiplying the number of gigabytes by 2 to calculate the cost. Now part E, it says, part D says, what is the difference between the way the two companies charge their customers? So the first company, there was only one function. It was the 9 plus 3D. This company, it charges customers using a different formula depending on how much data they use. So this second company uses a piecewise function. Now the last part says, write a cost function C of D for this company. Okay, now this part's going to be kind of tricky. So here's part E. Okay, the cost function for this company is going to look like this. It's going to get split up into different functions. If you use between 0 and 3 gigabytes of data, okay, so if you use between 0 and 3 gigabytes of data, then your cost is going to be $5. Okay? If you use between 3 and 8, so when it says between 3 and 8, 3 and 8 are not included. Anything between that is good. But 3 is not included, neither is 8. So it's less than and not equal to. So 3 is not included, neither is 8. Anything between is included. For 3 and 8, the cost function is D plus 5. The amount of data you use plus $5. If you use more than or equal to 8 gigabytes of data, then your cost function is going to be 2D. It's 2 times the amount of data used. So the cost function for this company is going to be different based on how much data you're using. Okay? Now, this concept is kind of difficult to understand. So look at this. You can go back and watch this again if you need to. Think of some questions you have. If you have some EDA questions, send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If not, then write them down. Write down whatever questions you have and come to class with some things in mind that you want to ask about. Okay, now let's see an example of a piecewise function and how to graph it. So part F says, sketch a graph of this, sketch a graph of C of D. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all this and I'm going to replace it with a graph. So in part F, we want to graph this function, C of D. So I'm going to have this gigantic graph. And then I'm going to have all these x's here. So this is D, and this is C of D, which is my cost. Okay, let's graph this. So if you use between 0 and 3, so if the D value is between 0 and 3, then the cost is $5. So if you use 0 gigabytes of data, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, $5. If you use 1, it's 5. If you use 2, it's 5. If you use 3, it's 5. So between 0 and 3, your cost is going to be $5. What about between 3 and 8? Between 3 and 8, your cost is D plus 5. So if you use D equals to 3, then the cost is D plus 5, which is $8. Okay, but it's not included. Okay, 3 is not included in this. So at 3, I'm going to still go to 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But I'm going to put an open circle there. So this tells me that the d value of 3 is not part of that function. But we still have to use 3 because what if d was equal to 3.001? What if you use 3.001 gigabytes of data? Then you would use this function because it's between 3 and 8. Okay, so to account for this, you have to start at 3. Okay, now this function ends at d equals 8. So at d equals 8, your cost is 8 plus 5, which is $13. Now again, 8 is not included, so at $13, I'm going to put an open circle. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then on the y value and the cost, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's going to be up there. So at 813, I'm going to put an open circle. Now it's an open circle because 8 is not, it's less than, which means 8 is not included as part of the function. So we're going to use an open circle. But why do we use 8? Why do we still calculate it? Because if you take d equals to like 7.999, that's between 3 and 8, so you would use that function. So to make sure this value is accounted for, we have to use 8 and put an open circle there. Now, what if it's greater than or equal to 8? Then your cost is given by 2 times d. So if d equals to 8, then your cost is going to be $16. If d equals 9, your cost is going to be $18. Now this time, because 8 is included, because it's $8, 8 gigabytes or more, you use 2d. Because 8 is included, we're going to use a closed circle. So at d equals 8, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Your cost is $16. So this is 13, 14, 15, 16. That's going to be up there. And this time I put a closed circle on that. If d equals 9, it's $18. So if d equals 9, then you're going to have $18. So it looks like this. So between 0 and 3 gigabytes, your cost is $5. Between 3 and 8 gigabytes, your cost is d plus 5, which is given by this. And then if it's more than or equal to 8, it's 2d, which is given by this. In the next video, I'm going to give you an example that doesn't involve a real-life situation, that just involves mathematical numbers. We're going to learn it that way first, and when you come to class, we're going to go back to some more real-life situations.